As far as Rippa, they did show some concern that I was going to leave a negative review. And I told them, don't worry about that. I'm just going to show what happens. And if you don't like that, here's the address. You can come and get this machine. I don't need it that bad. All right, guys, I'm pretty riled up today, and I have a lot that I want to say. So behind me on the hill, there is a tracked mini skid steer, and the track rolled off, and I've left it parked there since it happened. Now today, we're going to put the track back on it. We're going to look at the design of the tracks on this machine and talk about whether I think this machine has a design flaw or if this was operator error. Then I'm going to run the machine and see if I can recreate the problem. I want to know, is this a one-time thing or is it a design issue with the machine? We're also going to look at some other tracked machines, and I'm going to share my experience with all of these types of machines and the issue of tracks coming off. But the other thing I want to do in this video is I want to talk about the responsibility for truth in advertising. Because most of the equipment that is shown on my channel is provided to me by sponsors for me to make videos about. Now, because they are providing value to me, I want to provide value to the company. But I think my number one job is to be honest with you and share my real experience. So if I have a problem with the machine, I'm going to tell you about it. And I want to talk about the way I handled this track issue, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of whether or not I did the right thing in the way I talked about it. So this is the machine. It's the Rippa RS-06. I just picked this up about a week ago, and it was 2 days to bring it home. I stopped and used it for about 20 minutes at Peaks Peak Hobby Homestead. We made a video comparing this to his mini skid steer. Now I came home, drove it up the hill, track rolled off. And I made a video about it. And that got people riled up. Now to me, this was not a big deal. I have 4 tracked mini excavators down the hill. All mini excavators are, tracks. Then I've got a tracked mini skid steer. I used to have a John Deere full-size skid steer. I've demoed a lot of machines. Almost everything I've ever ran at some point through the tracks. And when this threw the tracks, I'm like, well, that sucks. It ruins my plans for today. It was really cold. It was rainy. I was kind of tired. I was kind of cranky. And I said, you know what? I'm just not going to mess with this. I'm going to make a video talking about what happened. And for Rippa, that was a big deal. Rippa has invested in me to provide me with this piece of equipment to make videos about. And they said, we're worried that this video makes our brand look bad. And I said, I don't think that at all. I think that every machine I've ever had has had tracks roll off. And every piece of equipment I've ever shown on my channel has had some kind of a mechanical failure. People complain that I am too positive about TYM. Always, TYM is the best. TYM this, TYM that. And even though I'm not sponsored by TYM, I have a deal with the dealership to let me use that machine. But I've shown all kinds of failures and problems on the TYM tractor. People say I'm too positive about it, but I showed a bent loader, I showed a broken door, I made a video complaining that the hydraulics were too slow. I've made plenty of negative videos about my favorite piece of equipment. And that is because if I don't tell the good and the bad, I don't think you guys will trust me, I don't think you'll respect me, and I don't think people would watch the videos. I think the only reason that any of this stuff I say matters is because I show the good and the bad. So I told Rippa, you guys are worrying too much. Let me just do what I do. And that is, I'm going to make 25 videos in the next 6 months that show this machine in some way. Once a week, you're going to see this machine on my channel. I'm going to do things with it that are not fair use. I'm going to run attachments on it. I'm going to do dedicated lift capacity test. I'm going to use the heck out of it. And some of that stuff is going to make the machine look like a real workhorse and a winner because it costs less than half as much as my other mini skid. But if it has a problem, it has a problem. Now, it may or may not have been fair to make a video about the tracks coming off because it's not a big deal. But I also had a bunch of viewers complaining that I never should have brought this machine up here. It's unfair to ask a mini skid steer to work in these conditions. So let's look at what we have here. Do you see something here that is disqualifying, that like a machine shouldn't be able to work in these conditions? Because I do not. Now, when I originally cleared this, it was a nightmare trying to get across here because of the rocks and all the debris in the way. But when the track fell off, I was driving back and forth right here. So some of the people said that this was an unfair use for this machine. Well, I don't think it is. Other people said the track was loose and I should have tightened that up before I started working. Sure, maybe that's all it is. Maybe when I picked this up, they should have put more grease in it than they did, and the tracks were loose. So we're going to find that out. My contention was that it should have had grease in it when I picked it up. But if it didn't have enough grease and the track rolls off once, that's no big deal. If the track rolls off every time I use it, then it's a problem. Let's find out which of those two things is the case. So ever since this happened, Rip has been messaging me and calling me and saying, hey, we want to connect you to our engineering team. We want to send you videos about how to fix this. I said, no, I don't want any treatment other than what a normal customer would get. And if I bought this machine with my own money and the track rolled off, I would not call customer service. I would not ask for support. I would not look at the manual. I would try to put this track back on by myself, just intuitively by looking at the way it's made. So that's what I'm going to do today. They tried to tell me how to do this. I said I don't want to see it. So I got this stack of scrap wood, and that's the start of my strategy here. If you got a mini excavator and your track comes off, you just put the blade down in front, you put the boom behind you, push all the way down with both of them. The machine comes up in the air and you put the track back on. Can't do that with this. So what you got to do is create that back blade essentially by putting something under the back of the machine so that when you push down on the front of the machine, it lifts it up in the air. Now, usually, in my experience with these machines, you got about a 6-inch gap underneath them. You need to put something about 6 inches tall under it. You can, if you're, not by your shop, you can get a block of wood, you can get a rock, a log, anything you can find and stick under the machine. And that's what I'm doing here. I've piled some pieces of wood under there, and that keeps the back in place. Now when I push down with the bucket, it ought to lift the thing up in the air. All right, that doesn't seem to be working. That's because I wasn't far enough. I need to push that wood up a little further. Okay, that isn't working. It's what I've done before, and it won't work because it's not lifting this up. I don't know what to do now. It may be because this kind of buried itself down into the mud when the track rolled off. And if I could get more height underneath it, that would solve it. So my theory at this point is that I should be able to stick like 7 inches of material under the back of this machine and then push down on the front. But because it's sunk in the mud, I can only get 5 inches of material in there. When I push on the front, it's not enough. So I grabbed a floor jack. We're going to lift this sucker up in the air. Now, I am not going to just lift this with the floor jack and then put the track on, because I want to know what the process should be like. So I'm going to stick my chunks of wood back under there and take the jack out and then see if I can do this. So essentially now this is setting about 2 inches higher than it was whenever I first put the boards under it. These boards are just the right thickness to fit under the machine. Let's see if we can wrestle this track on here. All I'm trying to do is get the back end under. Okay, now at this point we gotta let grease out of here so that we can articulate this. I've seen machines where you take the grease zerk out, but I don't think that's the case with this one. I've also seen machines that look like this, and this widened cutout makes me think that is so you can get a wrench in there. Okay, the end of this right here is unscrewing I removed this whole thing. It's a 27 millimeter. Now I should be able to push on the nose roller. Now some of you have watched me do this before, and you've seen me take the forks off of a second machine and push on the nose roller and shove it on. I caught a bunch of flack last time, people saying, oh, you don't have to do that, you can just lift it on. Well, it's a lot harder to just lift on than you might think it is. There are two separate parts of this process, and we've done the first one. Now sometimes you loosen up that nose roller and you can just lift this and set it on. This one doesn't feel like it's got enough slack to do that, or I'm just not strong enough. But I think I've collapsed the nose roller and I cannot pull this slack forward far enough. So the next thing you can do is put pressure on it to pull it forward. I've done this a few different ways. So this would be a great time for you guys to jump in the comments and give me options for next time. You can give other viewers options. One thing I've done is take a long bar, stick in here, and put a little bit of pressure up on that bar. And that pressure on that bar, you hold it there, and you can't reach the tracks usually when you're doing that. You have to have someone else run this track and it'll pop on. But I don't have a someone else right now. So the way I finally got this on was with it loose and with it on the back. I drove and turned in a way that would put pressure on the front, and it popped back on the same way it popped off. And I've done that plenty of times. I've got tracks to just pop themselves back on without even taking anything loose. But that way it can be more hassle than doing it the right way. Now we need to tension these tracks and check out the system. Oh, back to square one. I've got my stack of wood under the back. Let's lift it with the bucket. Before we can do that, we obviously have to put this back in. We want to make sure there's no dirt getting screwed into the grease chamber. Okay, this system is identical to the one on my Sunward. I have no complaints about the track tensioning system. But this is like 4 inches of sag here, and it should only be 1 inch. When that's lifted up, you should be able to stick one finger in, but that's it. Okay, we've got that good and tight. Let's check the other side. Now this side should represent the way it came from the factory. It's tight, it's good and tight. So what we're trying to do here is be real and show exactly what happens, but also be fair. Making a big deal about the track coming off may not have been fair on my part, but I also don't think it should have happened. Now, what do we actually know? If we're trying to be fair and honest, we need to be systematic. What do we actually know? We know that the track came off one time. Do we know if it was loose when I picked it up? No, we don't. Do we know if it comes loose too easy or if the track's just stretched? We don't know that. We don't know any of that. Do we know if it's going to happen again? We don't. Since we don't know any of that, we need to try to prove if any of that's true. And so I'm going to do that by putting some real hours on it right now in this video. And everything else I have to say and talk about my relationship with Rippa and what we're going to do going forward, we'll do it while the machine's running. But I guess I said the only thing we know is that the track came off once. We know two things, actually. We know that the track came off once, and we know that right now the tracks are tight enough and there's no problem, and there's no reason the track should come off again. As I've said before, if I'm in really rocky ground and I come up and I'm trying to turn on rocky ground, it's not a machine problem if that track comes off. The problem is if it comes off when you're not doing something that is especially strenuous on the machine. So I mentioned that I was going to talk a little bit about the design of this machine. Now, I made a big deal about the fact that this is a $15,000 machine that has more lift capacity and more hydraulic flow than my $40,000 machine down the hill. But if you're saving $25,000 on a machine with more capabilities, there will be trade-offs. It's just guaranteed. And it's like I said earlier, if I represented this as a perfect machine, I don't think you guys would believe me for a minute. There's going to be a trade-off for saving $25,000. So my job is to say, what are those trade-offs and are they worth it? So in this case, I think this sprocket is a little bit thin and there's only 3 bottom rollers. I think this machine could benefit from having more rollers, a thicker sprocket, and maybe a double sprocket on the bottom, because that's a pretty small sprocket down here. I'm no engineer. It's just, I'm just saying what I see. Let's take this thing down and run it. Now, for you guys that follow my channel, you know about this trail. See right here, it's huge rocks. And they're jutting up all over the place. This is a prime place to throw off a track, right here. Especially turning too sharp right up against a rock. But I shot a video right up here in front of us with my Bombelite mini skid. And I've made it clear, I really like that machine. I think it's well engineered, it's a good machine. I have talked about maybe it's too expensive, I don't know. But I like the machine, but I brought it right up here when I had a track off of the mini excavator. Mini excavator was here, Bombelite was next to it, and I said, this machine sucks for working on this hill. Now that Bombelite machine is sponsored. Bombelite sent it to me 1.5 years ago. But I told you, and I didn't ask Bombelite's permission to say that that machine sucks on this hill. And I didn't ask Rippa's permission to say that the track came off of this machine. What I want is sponsors who will allow me to tell you exactly what happened and take the results. I'm noticing kind of a weird noise from this. You hear that? It's not doing it right now. Let's see when I turn. No. No. There it is. Did you hear it? It's intermittent. It might be nothing. It might be something. I'm no diesel mechanic, no expert. We'll find out. What we're going to do today is move a bunch of dirt down by the pond. I was thinking about the problem of trying to lift this. Like right now, when I get to the bottom, if I want to check the tracks, I got to find something to block up under it and go through that process again. It'd be nice if the machine had a little drop leg that you pull a pin and that drops down, and then you can push on with the bucket and lift it. Hear that noise? It seems to do it whenever I push my drive lever to the left. Seems like it's a noise coming from the tracks. So some of the comments told me that this was my fault that the track rolled off because I should periodically check the track tension. So I agree, I should periodically check it. I did not put 20 minutes of runtime on this machine since I picked it up. I don't think 20 minutes is periodical. I think that means maybe if I run it for 8 hours, you lift it up and check the track tension. Or if you work it extra hard, but maybe you didn't put many hours on it, good time, lift it up and check the track tension. Usually, honestly though, owning other track machines, it felt like I could kind of tell when the track was loose. It felt like something wasn't right. But I had the John Deere skid steer for 2 years. I think I put maybe 300 hours on it. Tracks came off once, and when that happened, I was doing something dramatic. So what I'm going to do today, test this machine out, is move this dirt, this mud. It'll be a good challenging project. There'll be lots of turning, there'll be lots of weight on the front. All right, so this is a job that needs to be done, is move all this dirt away from the pond. It's not at the top of my priority list. I probably wouldn't do it today, and I probably wouldn't do it with a mini skid steer. But it does need done, and I'm doing it today because it's going to be a test to see if the tracks come off, because I'm going to do turning over and over and over again with weight in the bucket, and it's going to be challenging because this is really wet dirt and it's below freezing today. It's actually, I think the temperature right now is in the high 20s. So this is just a good test. And I probably won't move this whole pile because I need to move on. And in this video, I want to do more than one thing to test if these tracks are going to come off. Here's another funny comment I got yesterday on a video where I was at the Rippa dealership, and it shows me start this machine and throttle it up and start working. It was actually a different machine. It was a full-size skid steer. Somebody said this guy lost all credibility because he started the machine and throttled it right up and started moving. I thought it was such a funny comment, as if people don't know that these videos get edited. And in that case, that video, the technician came out there and he went through everything and made sure that machine was ready to go. He put extra fuel in it. He started it. He let it run for 10 minutes. And while it was running, we talked about all the features. Then he stepped off camera. I shut the machine off, and then I got in it and started it because it's an edited video. Now, I have a choice right now. I just started that. It's cold. I like to let it run for 5 minutes. And actually, I put the tracks back on yesterday when it was much warmer. So today, I started this up, and I'm letting it warm up. Now, normally in a video, I wouldn't show any of this. I would show myself walking over, starting it, and running it immediately. And just cut out the warm-up because that's boring. But that guy was adamant. No way that you didn't warm that up. Okay. From now on, I guess all my videos will show a machine warming up for 10 minutes. That'll be entertainment. Well, that's annoying. It's almost out of fuel. I gotta go get fuel. It will happen off camera, but trust me, it really happens. So about a week ago, I dug all of this material out of the pond. So it was obviously wet when I pulled it up out of there. And it's rained since. So this is a muddy mess, which is a little bit hard to tell in the video, but it definitely is. And it makes the material that I'm moving twice as heavy. And if you watch the dirt pile on the right side of the screen, it's sliding down as I work. You'll notice it more the longer I go along. So I think this is a pretty fair test of a normal use for a machine like this. So when companies send me machines like this to make videos about, I do not baby them. I don't think it does anybody any good to see how they perform in ideal situations. I want to try to push the limits of the capabilities of the machine. And I think it's the least I can do, honestly. And, I'm not trying to break anything. I just want to show what happens. And, I can't put 1,000 hours on every machine like, some people might actually do that. Especially having multiple machines here, I've only got so much time to test each one. So, I choose tasks that are especially challenging. So you can go back to one of my first videos from over 4 years ago, and I'm talking about my goals for this piece of property. And one of the big goals I had was to build a trail across the top half of the hill. And I wanted to do that from the first day I bought the property. But the real reason that I'm spending so much time up there is that it's hard on the machines. It's a challenging environment to work in. I gave a little speech earlier about why I think it's important that the brands give me license to show whatever happens. If I have a problem with the machine, I owe it to the viewer to show that I'm having that problem. Now, where I think I may have messed up a little bit with this particular machine is I did the classic YouTuber thing and made a dramatic title and thumbnail that said something along the lines of my new machine broke in 5 minutes. And the track coming off is not really the machine breaking. It is a common problem that can happen with any machine. So it was definitely a good idea, in my mind, to show that the track came off. But I probably didn't need to be so dramatic about it. But the reality is that I'm just a person like everybody else, and sometimes people get frustrated. And that day, I was frustrated because I had a limited amount of time and I wanted to get something done, and the track popped off, and it was cold, and it was raining, and I didn't feel like putting it on. So I just made the video, and I'm glad that I did. And the company wanted me to address the concern that that was a reflection of their track being problematic. Well, I'm trying to prove if that's true or not today. But really, my opinion on whether there's a problem with this machine is going to come 6 months from now when I've used it a lot more. And at that point, I'll give you a long-term review on the machine. And I'm optimistic that it'll be a positive review because the machine has a lot of power. It's got good lift capacity. It's got good hydraulic flow. It's got a Kubota engine. There's a lot to like. And the biggest thing to like is that it costs $25,000 less than the competition. As far as Rippa, they did show some concern that I was going to leave a negative review. And I told them, don't worry about that. I'm just going to show what happens. And if you don't like that, here's the address. You can come and get this machine. I don't need it that bad. And they said, no, you go ahead, make whatever video you need to make. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm moving this mud while driving through mud. I was pretty impressed with the performance of the machine. It did a good job. It's a little bit slower in terms of travel speed, and it was annoying that the mud kept getting stuck in the bucket. But that just is what it is. Now, in terms of the track issue, what Rippa really wanted me to make sure that you guys knew is that they take customer service very seriously and they are responsive to customer issues. The warehouse where I picked this machine up told me the same thing. And they didn't really know who I was or why I was there. They just knew I was picking up a machine. And they told me that their experience was that when a customer has a problem, Rippa takes good care of them and helps them get the machine fixed. I don't have any experience with that. I know that they were very responsive to help me, but also I make videos. So my experience may not be representative. I tell you what, I couldn't be any happier with the way this pond project is coming together. Every time I come outside, I walk down to the pond and just stand next to it and look at it. And it's a real point of pride for me, the amount of work that's went in it to get it to this point, and just the way it looks and how functional I think it's going to be. I still have a couple more projects down here to pull off, and even this area still needs some more grading, because as you'll see when I'm done, you can't really grade mud, because every time you pull through it, you're making new tracks. But I got it as good as I could get it while it's this wet. And then if it ever dries out, just bring a box blade across here and we'll be good to go. I showed in the last video that my grass seed I'd planted was coming up all the way around the pond. And that's going to help a lot, not just in the aesthetics, but in keeping the bank from eroding. All right, so let's talk about it. First, my intention today was to do multiple different tasks with this machine to see if I could roll the track off. But I just remembered the hydraulic fittings are a slightly different size on this one than my other one, which means I can't put any other attachments on except for the pallet forks. That's the only thing I could have that could go on here. So we're gonna call this a good test. So what was this test like? Well, this is muddy muck. It's thick junk. And it would be a challenge, it would be a possible opportunity to take a heavy weight in your bucket with that heavy mud and overfilled buckets and turn in the mud over and over and over again. That would be a possibility where you could run the risk of rolling off a track. And we did not roll off a track, so it wins. I'm going to consider this problem resolved. There's no track issue unless, of course, later we find out there's a track issue. It was a fun day. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.